You wake up and your body feels like it is pinned to the mattress by something you cannot see and cannot name. Your chest is heavy, your thoughts are thick and slow, like trying to think through wet concrete. You reach for the first cup of coffee before your feet even hit the floor, then the second, then the third, and the fog still does not fully lift. By 11 in the morning, you are already watching the clock, wondering how you are going to survive the afternoon. You used to have energy. You used to move through your days with genuine momentum. Now you are white knuckling your way to noon on caffeine and sheer willpower alone, and every single day it gets a little worse. You are eating clean. You are drinking your water. You are doing everything you were told to do, and your body is still running on empty. If that is your reality right now, I need you to stop scrolling and give me your complete attention, because what I am about to reveal has been sitting in the clinical literature for years, while the supplement industry, the pharmaceutical companies, and your well-meaning but woefully underinformed physician have kept pointing you toward the exact intervention that is making your situation worse, not better, worse. And there are two things I need you to stay for, because I am not going to reveal them yet. The first is the real name for what is happening inside your bone marrow right now that no one has ever explained to you. The second is the four-compound morning protocol that corrects this at the biological source, not at the surface level where mainstream medicine operates. Here is the first thing they never told you. Your fatigue at this age is not about being tired. It is not a lifestyle problem. It is not a hydration problem. It is an oxygen delivery problem. And it traces directly back to a documented, measurable collapse occurring inside your bone marrow that begins accelerating after the age of 50. The name for this process is erythroid mitochondrial aging. And once you understand its mechanics, everything about your chronic exhaustion will finally snap into focus. Think about your circulatory system as a massive logistics company running a continuous delivery operation. Every single second of your life, your body is manufacturing red blood cells inside your bone marrow and dispatching them as delivery trucks into your bloodstream. These trucks have one job. They load up oxygen canisters at your lungs and then race through every corridor of your body, delivering those canisters to your brain cells, your muscle fibers, your cardiac tissue, every organ and system that requires fuel to function. When you are young and your bone marrow is operating at full capacity, those trucks are built to specification. They are structurally sound, they carry full cargo holds, and they arrive at their destinations loaded with what your tissues need to fire correctly. But here is what erythroid mitochondrial aging does to that system. The mitochondria inside your bone marrow stem cells, the cellular power plants that generate the energy required to build each red blood cell correctly, begin to degrade with age. Their membrane potential drops, their ATP output declines. The manufacturing precision that your bone marrow once maintained around the clock begins to slip, and the result is that your factory starts sending out defective vehicles. Dented trucks with cracked frames, half-assembled trucks missing critical structural components, trucks with no cargo holds at all, incapable of loading a single oxygen canister at the lungs. These structurally compromised red blood cells enter your bloodstream and travel exactly as they should. They make the full circuit, they arrive at your brain, your muscles, your heart, but when they get there, they have nothing to deliver. No oxygen, no fuel, nothing. Your brain, which consumes approximately 20% of your total oxygen supply, despite comprising only 2% of your body weight, begins to stall at its highest functions first. Processing speed drops, working memory deteriorates. You experience what feels like a thick cognitive ceiling that no amount of caffeine can lift, because caffeine cannot manufacture oxygen. Your skeletal muscles fire without adequate aerobic substrate and fatigue within minutes of moderate exertion. Your adrenal glands, sensing the systemic oxygen deficit, begin releasing stress hormones in a compensatory response that leaves you simultaneously wired and utterly depleted. That is the precise biological architecture of the exhaustion you have been trying to outrun every single day. And the medical system's answer to this intricate cellular level manufacturing failure is to write you a prescription for cheap iron tablets and send you home. Let me tell you exactly what those tablets are doing to your body. Standard iron supplementation in conventional medicine almost exclusively means iron sulfate or iron carbonate. These are inorganic, synthetic compounds that have been in continuous use for decades, not because the science supports their efficacy in adults over 50, but because they are extraordinarily cheap to produce and require no reformulation investment to keep selling. Your physician prescribes them in complete confidence. The supplement industry manufactures them by the hundreds of millions, and the clinical data behind them, when you actually sit down and read it, is genuinely damning. Inorganic iron salts, including iron sulfate, carry a confirmed intestinal absorption rate of less than 5% in the typical aging adult gut. Less than 5%. That means for every 100 milligrams of iron sulfate you swallow, a maximum of 5 milligrams ever crosses your gut wall and enters your bloodstream. The remaining 95 milligrams does not pass harmlessly through your system. It remains in your intestinal tract where it undergoes a chemical process called Fenton chemistry, in which unabsorbed iron ions react with hydrogen peroxide to generate hydroxyl free radicals, among the most reactive and destructive oxidizing agents in all of biochemistry. These free radicals corrode your intestinal lining, obliterate your beneficial microbiome colonies, and create an oxidizing chemical sludge that triggers severe constipation in the majority of users. Research published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that over 60% of patients on standard iron sulfate therapy reported clinically significant gastrointestinal distress, while their objective markers of red blood cell capacity, specifically serum, ferritin, and hemoglobin levels, showed minimal, meaningful improvement after 12 weeks of treatment. You are absorbing corrosive gut damage in exchange for almost zero functional benefit. The industry knows this profile exists, and rather than reformulate, they instruct you to push through the side effects, label them temporary, and keep taking the product. Meanwhile, your bone marrow factory is still broken, your red blood cells are still arriving empty, and your brain and muscles are still suffocating inside a body that cannot deliver the oxygen they need to function. That ends today. Because there is a precision hematological approach that addresses every single link in this biological chain simultaneously, and it begins with a chelated iron compound that the mainstream supplement market has been deliberately underrepresenting for years. Iron bisglycinate, sold under the clinical trade designation ferrochel, is not simply an alternative iron form. It is a molecularly engineered compound in which one iron atom is chelated, meaning stably bonded, to two glycine amino acids in a protected ring structure. This molecular geometry is the entire key to its superiority. When standard inorganic iron sulfate reaches your gut lining, the hostile acidic environment cleaves it immediately, releasing free iron ions that cannot be absorbed efficiently and begin generating the destructive free radical cascade we just discussed. Iron bisglycinate reaches your gut lining intact. Because it carries glycine amino acid bonds, your intestinal transport system recognizes it as a protein adjacent compound and routes it through the peptide transporter pathway, a completely separate and protected absorption channel that bypasses the hostile gut environment entirely. The confirmed result is an absorption rate 4 times greater than iron sulfate, with data published in the journal Nutrition Research documenting superior and statistically significant increases in serum ferritin and hemoglobin markers alongside a near total absence of gastrointestinal side effects across all study participants. But here is what almost no one in the mainstream supplement conversation ever addresses. Iron availability is only half of the manufacturing equation. Your bone marrow cannot construct a structurally complete, high-capacity red blood cell without the correct molecular blueprint. That blueprint is active folate. And this is where the second catastrophic failure of standard supplementation occurs, because there is a form of folate that actually works and a form that does not, and the majority of people over 50 are using the wrong one entirely. Standard folic acid, the synthetic form found in most multivitamins and generic B-complex products, must be converted by an enzyme called methylfolate reductase, commonly abbreviated as MTHFR, before your body can incorporate it into cellular manufacturing processes. After 50, MTHFR enzyme activity declines measurably across a large portion of the population. Beyond that, research now estimates that up to 45% of adults carry a genetic variant that partially impairs this conversion regardless of age. This means a substantial fraction of adults over 50 who take folic acid are receiving almost none of its metabolic benefit because the conversion step that would make it biologically usable is either genetically compromised or age suppressed. They are swallowing a supplement that their own biochemistry cannot activate. And their bone marrow is still running the red blood cell assembly line with an incomplete blueprint as a direct result. Quattrofolic methylfolate resolves this completely. This is the bioactive, already converted form of folate that requires zero enzymatic transformation to become useful. It enters the bloodstream in its biologically operative state, crosses directly into bone marrow stem cells, and immediately provides the cofactor required to synthesize the globin protein chains that form the functional backbone of a fully loaded, high capacity red blood cell. Clinical data from the European Journal of Nutrition confirmed that quattrofolic methylfolate raises active folate levels in the blood 90% more efficiently than standard folic acid in adults with impaired MTHFR function, 90% more efficiently, and your bone marrow feels that difference every single morning. Now, let me give you the exact protocol because generalities are useless and you deserve precise, actionable specifics. Every morning, on an empty stomach, you take 25 milligrams of ferroshell iron bisglycinate, not iron sulfate, not iron carbonate. Ferroshell specifically because that is the chelated pharmaceutical grade form with credible, reproducible absorption data behind it. You take it simultaneously with 800 micrograms of quattrofolic methylfolate and a full 8-ounce glass of water. The empty stomach timing is not optional. The peptide transporter pathway that iron bisglycinate relies on operates at maximum efficiency in the absence of competing compounds derived from food. At the same time, you add 1,000 micrograms of sublingual adenosylcobalamin, not cyanocobalamin, not methylcobalamin. Adenosylcobalamin specifically because this is the mitochondrial form of B12, the cofactor that operates directly inside the energy-producing machinery of your bone marrow stem cells, functioning as the ignition key that activates the entire red blood cell manufacturing sequence at the cellular level. Without sufficient adenosylcobalamin, even an optimal supply of iron and methylfolate cannot fully power the erythropoietic engine in aging bone marrow. It is the spark plug the factory cannot run without. You also take 500 milligrams of liposomal vitamin C at the same time. Vitamin C in the gut environment chemically reduces ferric iron to ferrous iron, the ionically preferred and more bioavailable state for intestinal uptake. The liposomal delivery format ensures the vitamin C reaches sufficient intestinal concentration to perform this reduction reaction without triggering the loose stools that standard ascorbic acid commonly causes at equivalent doses. You are now running a synchronized 4-compound system that applies targeted intervention at every biological checkpoint in the red blood cell production pathway, simultaneously and with compounding effect. For dietary reinforcement, your breakfast taken approximately 30 minutes after the morning protocol should include a portion of grass-fed red meat or 2 organic eggs, providing heme iron and naturally occurring B12 that compounds the bone marrow stimulation effect across the full morning window. And you must avoid coffee and black or green tea for at least 60 minutes after taking this stack. The tannins and polyphenols in these beverages form insoluble complexes with iron directly in the gut environment, and research confirms they can suppress your effective iron absorption by up to 70% in that window. This single behavioral detail is quietly destroying weeks of progress for the majority of people attempting iron supplementation, and almost no practitioner ever mentions it. Here is your challenge, and I am issuing it with complete seriousness. Starting tomorrow morning, you commit to the 14-day cellular oxygenation challenge. The first act of that commitment is to remove your iron sulfate tablets from your home permanently. Do not finish the bottle. Do not pass them on to someone else. They are not a gift. They are an actively corrosive compound for your gut microbiome, and they are delivering essentially zero hematological benefit to your aging red blood cell production system. Remove them. Every morning for 14 consecutive days, you implement the full morning protocol precisely as described. Ferroshell iron bisglycinate at 25 milligrams, quatrafolic methylfolate at 800 micrograms, sublingual adenosylcobalamin at 1000 micrograms, liposomal vitamin C at 500 milligrams, empty stomach, full glass of water, breakfast 30 minutes later, no coffee or tea for 60 minutes after dosing, no exceptions. Every afternoon between 2 and 4, you record two numbers on a scale of 1 to 10. Your first number is physical stamina. Your second number is mental clarity and cognitive focus during whatever task you are managing at that moment. That specific afternoon window is where tissue fatigue caused by oxygen deprivation historically crashes the aging body hardest. Track both numbers every single day, from day 1 through day 14. Based on the absorption timelines and erythropoietic response rates documented in the literature for this protocol, most people notice a measurable softening of the afternoon energy collapse by day 7. By day 14, the clinical expectation is a sustained improvement in stamina, mental sharpness, and physical endurance that you have not experienced in years. You are not experiencing a natural and inevitable consequence of aging. You are experiencing the consequence of having been given the wrong biological information for a very long time. And today that changes. Subscribe to this channel right now because every video here is built exactly like this one. Dense, specific, rooted in the mechanisms that the supplement industry and mainstream medicine would prefer you never learn to ask about clearly. And share this video today with someone you care about who is white-knuckling their way through life on 3 cups of coffee, convinced that crushing exhaustion is simply what being over 50 is supposed to feel like. It is not, and they deserve to know exactly what you now know. Before you close this tab, I need to leave you with a warning about what is coming next week. I am going to expose the silent vascular event that is currently coating the inner walls of your arteries with a layer of microscopic crystalline deposits, progressively blocking microcirculation to your brain and your extremities, and triggering the condition researchers are now calling vascular cognitive erosion. Your cardiologist is not screening for it. Your internist has no reversal protocol for it. And the single nutrient documented across 12 independent clinical trials to dissolve these deposits and restore microcirculation costs less than $2 per month and sits in the supplement aisle completely unrecognized for this specific purpose. Hit the notification bell before you close this tab. That video may be the most consequential piece of health information you have ever watched.